Hello everybody, so this is Captain Johnny here. So today we'll be learning about the Titanic, and today we're going to talk about the breakup of Titanic when the ship sank. We're going to talk about why some people did not believe the ship fall apart and what caused Titanic to break apart and how did the ship come apart as well. So once again, we're going to talk about the breakup of Titanic. So the first one is, why do people think the ship did not break in half? So back in 1912 to 1985, it was believed the ship went down in one piece. However, when the wreckage was found, the reality, it was found in two pieces.
After the sinking, two official inquiries concluded that the ship gently slipped below the waves. But even at the time, many survivors contradicted that, testifying Titanic broke apart before she sank. Something confirmed when the wreck was discovered in 1985.
So the reason why some survivor did not see and assume the ship sank in one piece is many survivors were not at the exact location where the ship sank. Some people, they focus on survival, and some people, they were fighting underwater to keep alive. And was also a moonless night, and it was hard to see whatever is going on. When the Titanic survivors tried to explain that the ship broke apart, many people did not believe them. It wasn't until they were right when the wreckage was found in 1985. One of the survivors, Chief Baker Charles Jochen, was getting a drink in his cabin when he heard a strange noise, and that noise is the sound of the ship tearing apart. Now let's hear from the Titanic survivors to see what they see.
Those watched on in horror.
Jack Thayer, who was a 17-year-old first-class passenger, recorded in his memoirs what he saw. Suddenly, the whole superstructure of the ship appeared to split. Her stern was gradually rising into the air. We could see groups of people still aboard, clinging in clusters or bunches like swarming bees, only to fall in masses, pairs or singly, as the great afterpart of the ship, 250 feet of it, rose into the sky. Gradually, she turned her deck away from us, as though to hide from our sight the awful spectacle.
Based on historical accounts like these, many have assumed that the ship snapped cleanly in two.
vessel went down, tipping the stern high in the air. It seemed to then break in two in the middle, and then the whole thing sank.
Finally, there was a terrific explosion, like a cannon report, and a big black cloud of smoke arose from the ship. This settled, and the ship appeared to be broken at the middle. Finally, there was a second report, more muffled than the first, and the bodies came over the side of the ship by the hundreds. The ship had gone down right after the second explosion, after the bow was submerged by the water and the propellers were raised up out of the water.
With one tremendous roar, which sounded and resounded over the sea, she seemed to break in the middle and sink.
It seemed to break in half between the four funnels. The front went down quietly, and the stern stayed up a minute and sank.
When the Titanic breaking apart, some survivors claim to see that the tower on the Titanic also come apart as well, the forward and aft tower. Let's see what they say.
Could you see the boat well after you pulled away from her? You could see her when the lights were clear, and then until she gave the final plunge. Did the boat go into pieces or come in two? She parted between the third and fourth funnels. What makes you say that? The foremost part was gone, and it seemed as if the engines were all gone out. You could see the forepart was all gone, and could see the stern come up horizontal. Yes, sir. After the forepart had disappeared, the stern came up and was horizontal with the surface of the water. Yes, sir. When the third funnel had nearly disappeared, I heard 4 explosions, which I took to be the bursting of the boilers. The ship was right up on end then. Suddenly, she broke in two between the third and fourth funnels. The after part of the ship came down in the water in its normal position and seemed as if it was going to remain afloat, but it only remained a minute or two and then sank.
I was facing the Titanic and could see her going down. I saw the lights go out deck after deck. When the water got into the engine room, there was an explosion, and then I saw the Leviathan part in the middle. Then she went down slowly, amid heartrending cries for help of hundreds of doomed men and women.
We could see the port lights go under one by one until there was an awful explosion of the boilers bursting, and then the ship seemed to break right down the middle, and after a bit go down. When it did go down, we heard terrible screams and cries from people who were going down with the boat.
Recognizing that the Titanic was fast settling down, The crew pulled vigorously to get beyond the region of a possible vortex. Suddenly, there was a terrible crash, and the great ship appeared to split in twain, if not in 3 distinct sections. The rendering of our timbers and steel plates making a noise that carried terror into the hearts of all. The end came swiftly. One of the funnels toppled over the side, and the bow parted just in line with the bridge.
The ship sank steadily until just at the last, when it plunged rapidly. Just before going down, it seemed to rift, breaking into the 3 parts into which it was divided. First, the middle seemed to go down, lifting bow and stern into the air. Then it twisted the other way, throwing the middle up. Finally, the bow went under and it plunged stern last.
With these testimonies differ.
So, yep, with that, all the survivors out of the way, now we're going to explain why the Titanic broke in half. The Titanic broke in half due to a structural failure on the ship. When the ship sank, the back of the ship has the heavy engines on the back there. So once again, the back of the ship has a very heavy engines, and those engines, they try to keep the ship from sinking any further. When the front part of the ship takes on water, it becomes too heavy to stay afloat. The engines in the back of the ship, they try to keep the entire ship from sinking. This causes the structural stresses onto the ship. And then when that structural failure happens, the ship breaks in two. And now we know why Titanic broke in half, and now we're going to put the pieces together in the chain of events that happened that night, April 15, 1912. It is 2:15 a.m. on the morning of April the 15th, 1912. The Titanic begins her final plunge. As the final plunge began, those heavy engines are trying to keep the ship from sinking completely. So as the ship sinks more and more deeper, the more roaring sound of the ship becomes. And so as you can see, the ship cannot hold it anymore with the stress. And then finally, at 2:17 a.m., she breaks apart. So as you can see, the Titanic has just broken apart. As you can see that. So, after the Titanic breaking apart, the back of the section seemed to settle back a little bit, creating a false sense of hope to the passengers and survivors, that the false of and hope that the back of the ship will survive and stay afloat. However, this does not last long. The back of the ship now fills with water and sinks rapidly, beginning the final plunge into the water. Before disappearing at 2:20 a.m. on the morning of April the 15th, 1912. And once again, it was long believed that the ship sank in one piece from 1912 to 1985. But however, in reality, the ship was found in two pieces, broken apart from each other. Alright guys, and that is it for this video today. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Make sure to like, subscribe button. See my future video. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.